Hello and welcome back to One Trek Mind with me, Raptor.
And me, Michael.
And today we're going to go through episode 8 of Lower Decks, which is called Upper Decks. This is another pretty filler-heavy episode and a bit of a meta-commentary episode as well. And I do have some strong feelings about this one, but we'll summarize the episode first. So, the episode starts with our Lower Decks crew carving Halloween pumpkins, which I believe is the first time in Star Trek history that we've seen a Earth festival being celebrated, because we've never seen Christmas or Easter or anything like that. I believe this is the first time it's ever actually been shown or mentioned. Basically, the conversation between the Lower Decks crew goes on about how basically they see themselves as the stars of the ship or the show, as it were, and questioning whether sort of anything actually happens to the rest of the command staff, who they say just sort of fade into the background as a very tongue-in-cheek reference to the whole premise of the show. After the titles, we are basically with the Upper Decks crew, the bridge crew, for the entire episode. So we start with a conference between all of the bridge crew where we learn a crew member has been mutated by a virus that has turned her into a futuristic cave woman scared of fire, who is relevant later on.
Which has to be a reference to the Next Gen episode where everyone kind of like becomes Neanderthals.
Dr. Tahana is getting a lot of complaints for not using anesthetics in surgery or when she's doing her doctoring stuff. And we learn that the ship is in a region where there's these space life forms, the Backgroun, which are all kind of riled up and acting a bit unusual, and that's kind of why the Cerritos is here. They're investigating what's going on. During the conference, Shax seems to have some sort of vision or hallucination, which creeps him out, and he wants the day off to go and deal with that, which he gets. After the conference, we start with Commander Ransom, who's overseeing work with these Backgroun. He's meeting a specialist professor who's come aboard to study the creatures, which kind of made me think of a combination of like a tardigrade and a trilobite.
They're very cute. I actually like them a lot. It's like, oh, they're very cute looking.
And it's revealed that Ransom has Delta Shift and Beta Shift helping him, and they don't get along, and Ransom knows this, and Ransom makes it very clear that most of his job is spent dealing with the problems of the lower deckers, as he calls them. It very quickly all goes to pot. One of the crew members using a handheld tractor beam device, which we saw in a previous episode, invented by
the daughter of Zeus,
drags a massive shiny asteroid into the hangar bay, almost killing the professor, and it turns out the Backgroun really love these things. It's also revealed that Backgroun have a natural cloaking ability, and this causes carnage in the hangar bay, where the Backgroun cloaks and starts rolling around like a pill bug. In order to stop Beta and Delta Shift arguing with each other, Ransom starts telling a story about having some bench press competition, because naturally it's Ransom and all he cares about is working out. While they're being bored to death by that, Shax is having more of these visions in his quarters, and I see his whole part in this episode as basically a PTSD trip.
Yeah.
There's also a reference to maybe him having like a literal presence in his mind he has to combat, but the way I've seen him in this episode, it's definitely a PTSD reading. He is having flashbacks of his time in the Bajoran militia fighting against the Cardassian occupation, and he's basically starts meditating in order to try to literally fight the flashbacks he's getting. In engineering, Chief Engineer Billups He's having a perfectly normal day when one of his officers reports a damaged light bulb, and it turns out instead to be a huge problem of overloading plasma canisters. He has to rope the poor ensign into helping him fix, and it's going to only get worse from there. Dr. Tahana is pissed at the complaints She makes that very clear in her log entry as we switch to her. The nurse that she has working with her makes it very clear that she literally doesn't use pain medication. That's the problem. There's a funny reference to like a pain chart, which simply shows a smiley face saying happy and a not smiley face saying other. which was,
Are you good or not?
The doctor's response to this is to tie herself up to a bed and coerce her nurse into committing surgery on herself without pain medication in order to update the pain chart. I will come back to talk about this after I summarize the episode. Captain Freeman is busy doing captain-y things. She goes to a recital by the ex-Neanderthal crew member playing a massive tuba thing, then ends up going to a crew member who's giving birth, and it looks like he gives birth to a Cthulhu monster, frankly. But it is revealed at about the halfway point that the ship is being watched by unknown people inside this asteroid field where they are. Meanwhile, in the hangar bay, things are getting worse. More of these, what's Ransom calls space cows, are coming into the ship, causing carnage. Delta and Beta shifters are arguing again. It's clearly not going well. Ransom resorts to, again, the power of working out to try to get them to work together, which just kind of annoys them more. In engineering, the problem with the plasma system results in them having to do something with the computer, but it's revealed that he's brought this from the Binars, and it includes an artificial intelligence defense system, which turns out to be this golem that comes out of this console and eats him, and the ensign has to reset the system while telling the golem a sad story from her childhood. Again, it feels like a very next generation sort of plot there. In medical, Dr. Tahana is upping the ante with some massive laser that starts electrifying her, and Shax is still fighting off visions of the occupation. It turns out that the professor in the hangar bay helping with the Backgroun is actually in disguise, is a giant insectoid member of a species called the Clickers, or Clickets.
I think it's a Clicket.
Who are mentioned in the conference at the very start of the episode as a race that really hates being complimented, which will be important later. It turns out they're here to take the Backgroun, harvest their natural cloaking organs, and maybe eat them too.
Only if they taste good.
Only if they taste good. They attack the ship. It looks like they've infiltrated the ship quite well. They're almost about to kill Ransom, Shax, all sorts of trouble. Luckily, for the bridge crew, it doesn't turn out that way. Captain Freeman, who is about to be killed by a Clicket, who is intensely pissed off at the fact that she doesn't even know who they are, which seems to be the only reason they're doing this, is that these insects are just annoyed that nobody in the Federation knows who they are. She's saved by the ex-Neanderthal crew member who uses her massive tuba musical instrument thing to smack the shit out of every Clicket she sees. Commander Ransom, who has fallen asleep from all of the working out he's been doing, is saved by Beta and Delta Shift working together to knock out the Clicket that's about to kill him. And just when it seems that Neanderthal Woman and Captain Freeman are about to be killed by a larger group of Clickets, Dr. Tahana, who we last saw having leeches stuck to her face, bursts out of sickbay, which is just where they happen to be, takes a phaser at kill setting to the chest with no effect, and attacks the Clicket responsible, rescuing them. Again, I have a problem with that too. Shax defeats his PTSD alien visions, and in so doing, through this meditative process, also knocks out all of the Clickets who were about to kill him. When he comes to out of this meditative state, he's kind of apologetic about it all. which I thought was rather nice. On the bridge, it looks like the Clickets are going to win regardless, but Captain Freeman remembers that these guys don't like compliments and starts complimenting the Clicket captain on his, saying he's handsome, saying he has good vibes, that he's just a captain doing the best for his crew and she respects him and all this other stuff. And eventually he's overcome with all of the compliments and they all run away. Shax is back to normal, it seems. In engineering, everything is back to normal, as every good Star Trek episode is. And in the hangar bay, everything is also sorted out fine. The Backgroun are relaxed now, they leave the ship. Ransom, it is revealed, was only pretending to be asleep in order to get them to work together. He is caught out, but basically no one would believe the person who catches him what he was really doing, and that's why she decides not to tell anybody. And the episode ends with everyone in the bar, the lower decks crew baffled and bemused at hearing rumours of a takeover of the ship that they have no knowledge about. Shax agrees to get therapy for his condition with Dr. Miglimu. Dr. Tahana agrees to get pain meds in after being burned by Chowder. Oh, and Captain Freeman gets to have an anniversary dinner with her husband at the end of a busy and stressful day.
Which was very sweet.
It was. And in the bar, the episode ends with the lower decks crew again commenting on this meta commentary of like, Mariner thinks there's no way the command crew have their own stories when they're not having their stories on the show and everything else. And it's all very tongue-in-cheek. And yeah, that's the episode. Now, I have a few strong opinions about some of these, but I want to know what you think first.
Overall, I was a little disappointed just because once again we're doing a filler episode, and with there only being 2 episodes after this, I feel like it was slightly a waste of time. It's not like I didn't want to see a little bit more of the bridge crew and some of the higher ranking officers, but I was hoping that that would have kind of happened naturally over the course of the season as opposed to its own specific episode.
Yeah, that's basically what I thought. I thought this episode would have been great to have season 2 or 3, not now.
Yeah,
at the very end of the show.
It feels like an afterthought for the most part, where it's, I mean, as much as I do like a lot of these characters, I don't care about them enough to have really gotten into the episode. I was sort of just like, okay, sure, why not? Not my favorite thing that we could be doing right now, but I'll take it. And there were some storylines that I liked quite a bit in this episode, and some that I just didn't like.
Then let me discuss, because I have a feeling we're going to agree on what's wrong with this episode. Something that this episode has made me ponder is the fact that the show is a cartoon, in inverted commas, mean that it can present certain behaviors as acceptable. There are 2 very conflicting things it shows here. On the one hand, we have Shax, who is clearly going through a PTSD-like episode as a result of his Bajoran occupation. Terrorism time. It's shown very seriously. It's presented quite well. When he comes out of his meditative state, the violence that he exacted, he is very apologetic about. So he understands that it is not a good thing that he was doing this. And at the end of the episode, Dr. Miglimu offers to give him therapy, which is essentially what people with PTSD need to have, which was great.
I was going to say, that was one of my favorite storylines of the episode.
But on the other hand, we have a doctor who is breaching the Hippocratic Oath by not using pain medication during surgery, and who, I'm going to put it in as blunt terms as I'm seeing it, decides to commit self-harm upon herself, coercing a member of staff under her authority to help her commit self-harm upon herself, clearly enjoys the self-harm being done upon herself. The episode plays it as a joke because she then, and also presents it as a good thing because she then somehow manages to absorb being shot point blank range by a phaser in the chest on kill setting, which is a complete inaccuracy to everything about Star Trek weaponry, and the episode ends without ever sort of responding to the fact that she essentially committed that self-harm upon herself. You know, that no one points out that what happened was fucked up. No one points out that maybe this needs to be investigated. It's just left alone. And I think that's kind of problematic.
I would mostly agree. I honestly took more issue with the fact that she coerced a subordinate to break the Hippocratic Oath himself. I found that to be kind of fucked up in particular. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I get it, we're playing this off as just comedy, but this does present like some serious ethical questions that I don't think should be played off as comedy.
Because, and the way I see it is, if we've seen episodes in Star Trek before about people self-harming played very seriously, even parody programs like the Orville, which are traditionally, which are very comedy heavy, whenever they come to a serious topic, it is not played for laughs, it is dealt with seriously, because they understand that there are some things you just don't make jokes about. Now, if this storyline with her was in a live-action medical show like Casualty over here in the UK, or House, or any other medical live-action show, people would say, that's fucked up. But because it's in a cartoon, it seems like it's allowed. And I'm really on the fence about that. I really feel like that's a very iffy line.
I would agree. Again, for me, that was probably my least favorite storyline for that reason. Ransom probably taking second place for me just because I found him really annoying and just didn't enjoy his storyline. I was like, you're just an asshole, dude. I just don't like you. But yeah, a doctor breaking the Hippocratic Oath, performing self-harm, all these things being played just for laughs. It feels like a missed opportunity to actually explore that character a little bit more, and at the same time is, as you said, kind of problematic. So yeah, I was not a fan of that. For me, the top two storylines were Captain Freeman and Shax. Like, those two storylines I thought were actually quite good. And what is the engineer's name again? Billip?
Billups.
His was mid for me. I was just like, it's fine. It's entertaining.
Yeah, it was basically here is the average Star Trek engineer's day in the life of, where everything seems to go catastrophically wrong, but at the end of the episode, everything's fine again.
Yeah, like I said, like that one was serviceable. I do think the Golem might have been a little too much. Maybe, I mean, for the sake of comedy, it was funny, but I was like, why would you have this on your ship? Like, that's
I certainly hope the Borg never assimilate something like that.
Yeah, that would definitely
that
not
would be
good.
Bad.
But I thought that one was all right. I think Shax was probably my favorite storyline of the episode, because not only did it deal with a pretty heavy topic in a somewhat fun kind of way, it also, I think to this day, shows more of the occupation than we've ever actually seen, which I do feel like it's a slight missed opportunity that they didn't do just a teeny bit more with that, but it was nice to see like a little bit going on with that. That's completely a Cardassian thing to do, I think, to put a bomb in one of their relics.
Definitely, I could definitely see that being a Cardassian trick.
And now we know how he got the scar and lost his eye and everything as well. So again, I really like that storyline. I just like Shax in general.
He is a good character.
And Freeman's was also pretty good, because again, it's just a day in the life of a captain, doing the kind of humdrum activities that no one really wants to do, but as a captain, it's sort of your obligation to do so. And she solved the problem of the episode without, for lack of a better term, Michael Burnhaming the situation and just like beating them up. Like, she came up with a pretty clever way around it that was actually pretty funny.
And just seeing her have her anniversary dinner with her husband was just, a nice, cute ending to the episode, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that was sweet.
But, like you said at the start, it's kind of let down by the fact that this episode feels very hyper-fillery in a season that's felt too fillery at the end of the show's runtime, and I feel like this episode would have done better if it was in season 2 or 3, where to get us to know the Upper Decks crew more. Putting it at the very end, I'm like, what the bloody hell is the point? Who cares now?
Yeah. And again, I don't think it should have been its own episode. I really think each of those storylines should have been spaced out over the course of the show in other episodes, so that over time you get to like enjoy some of these characters and learn more about them as the show goes on. And it would have given each of those storylines more time to breathe.
For sure. It is an anachronism in the episode that I feel needs referencing. A phaser on kill kills. It doesn't care how high your pain tolerance is. It has fuck all to do with pain tolerance. It's about the amount of energy going into you. If it doesn't vaporize you, you die. The only time we've ever seen a phaser not kill instantaneously was in Enterprise, and it was a glancing wound, and poor old Captain Shran's lover died hours later as a result of complications from it being on kill setting. So even then...
Just a slight wound from a phaser or weapon on kill setting is likely going to kill you. It's almost a certainty.
That was just an anachronism that kind of annoyed as well, because it was part of that whole storyline. It's like, that's not... You just can't claim... It's almost presenting if you're used to being hurt lots, you can withstand being hurt lots in a combat situation, which seems a very problematic message to have.
So yeah, overall, probably my least favorite episode of the season, I would say.
Probably my least favorite of the show overall, I would have to say.
I would have to rewatch to know if that was my least favorite of the entire show. For sure for the season, though. But yeah, let us know what you have to think about this episode. Again, if you disagree with any of our criticisms here, we'd love to discuss it.
Definitely think it is actually quite an interesting discussion actually to have, considering more and more of these adult cartoons, or adult, for want of another term, are coming around. I definitely think it's an interesting area to think about.
Agreed. But go ahead and leave us a like, subscribe if you enjoyed. And that's about it from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.